Good morning, I'm Bear from the internet in the team room while a massive thunderstorm rages outside, so if the audio is terrible, I apologize. I'm doing the best I can with what I got where I'm at. Also, this is a pre-record, so you don't need to comment, "I missed the live stream." It wasn't live, it was pre-recorded because there's a sleeping baby in my house right now and I didn't want to wake her up. So, pre-record from the team room. It is the 26th of April 2024. We're going to do the brief economic indicators and some World Economic Forum shenanigans, and then we're going to do national intel, which has been sent in by y'all. Email address is intel@bearindependent.com, or you can click the Intel tab to contact us at bearindependent.com. And please send in what you are seeing and hearing with your own eyeballs and your own earballs, okay? Not Bear, click this link, watch this video, read this article. What are you experiencing? What are you seeing with your own eyes? Tracking? Tracking, Bear? Alright, cool. Of course, if you could subscribe, ring the little bell icon, that helps us tremendously. Dealing with the YouTube shadow ban shenanigans, and thumbs up, comment for the YouTube algorithm, all that stuff. Please and thank you. And the show is brought to us by the creator of the universe, Yahuwah, your Elohim, the Lord your God. The fine people on Patreon, link in the description. And refugemedical.com, of whom I am the founder and CEO. So, Bear Independent Brief, 26 April 24. Mortgage rates have jumped once again to 7.17%, leaving the housing market somewhat stagnant. Because housing is one of the largest expenses for the American household, this expense has ripple effects throughout the spending habits of the population, which in turn has impacts across the larger economy. So just what is the state of things in April 2024? The median price for a house in the United States has outpaced incomes. The recommended rule of thumb has long been to purchase a home that costs 3 to 5 times one's income. Now, that safe budgeting metric has become unreachable for far too many in the United States. Between the years of 1972 and 2022, about in the last 50 years or so-ish, the median home price skyrocketed from $29,200 to $479,500, while the median household income during that same time period grew from only $9,697 to $74,000 and change. So approximately a 7.5x increase in household income, with approximately a 16x on home costs. If a family with such an income were to follow the same time-tested advice mentioned, 3 to 5 times your yearly income, that means that the house that they could afford is closer to the $225,000 range, which is still lower than the median home price today. Unfortunately, according to Chen Zhao of Redfin's economic team, quote, "Prices are unlikely to fall on a year-over-year basis unless demand falters," end quote. This is residential real estate. Residential real estate still seems to have some steam. Commercial real estate, not so much. A lot of remember the co-working trend? Where somebody would rent out an office space and subdivide it into multiple smaller offices, and then small businesses could share that space co-working. Yeah, that basically died with COVID. And commercial real estate as a whole has been taking a nosedive since COVID. Coffee. This coffee cup brought to you by Mountain Readiness Fallout. mountainreadiness.com. You guys, if you're on the East Coast, anywhere near North Carolina, you should go to the Mountain Readiness event, READINESS. Just Google Mountain Readiness. You will find them. Tickets are very affordable. I make no money from telling you this, but so many people are like, yo, I can't find people to do prepper stuff with. I can't form a mutual assistance group. I can't form a team or a crew. There's nobody near me. If you're on the East Coast, or if you're in the Southeast, Harmony, North Carolina was where the last one was. I believe it will be in North Carolina again this fall. MountainReadiness.com. Check it out. Lots of good people there. Lots of good presenters there. But I digress. You know what? Sip of coffee number 2. That demand for houses is still high amid a too low supply of houses. So demand is exceeding inventory. Demand is exceeding supply. What happens in basic economics when demand exceeds supply? Prices go up, up, up. Not only is the United States wanting for an additional 3.8 million houses, but among the types of housing that is being built, the more financially affordable starter homes are the ones being built less and less frequently. Not only have property developers been building more expensive homes to increase profit margins, but also zoning laws in cities that have decent work to offer continue to crowd out options. Also, the cost of building materials in this post-COVID world are insane. I remember when 2x4s, good ones, were $1.50. They're like, $5 to $7 a piece now. And there's a fair number of 2x4s that go into building a house, even a small one. Sheet goods, 3/4 OSB used to be $30-35 for a sheet, $70 now. And screws and nails and everything else, fasteners, hardware, adhesives, insulation, doors and windows, siding, electrical, holy cow, electrical. The cost of electrical wire has gone up substantially. So everything costs more to build now as well. Part of that is a function of demand, part of that is a function of supply, part of that is a function of the ever-weakening US dollar. I am not an investment professional. I don't play one on television, I very much so believe, at least for me and my household right now, while we have some liquidity, some emergency fund in the bank, I am investing in tangible assets right now, things that I'm going to want in the future, because I think the dollar is going to become weaker in the near term rather than stronger. So, precious metals, all types of precious metals, medical components, land, water storage, agriculture, infrastructure, solar panels, battery arrays, etc., etc., etc. Electric fencing. I can see fence from where I'm sitting right now. Fencing is not cheap either. So those things. On top of the increased cost for the same house, the interest rates have skyrocketed that monthly payment beyond what many can afford comfortably. Ironically, this in turn worsens the problem because those who locked in a decent interest rate don't want to sell now and move into a home with a significantly higher interest rate than what they already have. Elaine Bannigan, a Douglas Elliman broker, said, quote, "It's pretty hard to trade up today. You're going to pay more for the house and you're going to pay much more for the mortgage," end quote. She said of first-time home buyers, quote, "They desperately want to buy, but they have had to readjust their expectations because they can afford less today than they would have at lower rates," end quote. At the moment, it actually makes more financial sense to rent instead of buy in the United States. And this has only been the case a few times in history. Now, revenue-wise, renting can make more sense than buying. As far as what your gross revenue is that you bring in, you can't afford to buy a house, so therefore you have to rent. The problem with renting is that while you may build your credit score, which is a ridiculous number based upon how much pretend money the slave traders are allowed to give you at any given point in time, It basically, your credit score determines what size hamster wheel you're allowed to run on. It's a thing. My credit score is dashes because I've paid cash for stuff for the last 20 years. I made my own hamster wheel, thank you very much. I like mine better than theirs. It's better for me than theirs is. Revenue-wise, renting can make more sense than buying, comma, you have no equity when you rent. And that's part of the problem as well. If you own a house, like own it, you paid it off, it's yours, that's an asset. That counts as an asset on your profit and loss statement. It affects your net worth. So that revenue becomes an investment that you're investing into an asset that has a positive effect on your net worth. Not the case when you're renting. When you're renting, you're just spinning the hamster wheel. And I have rented many properties in my life. And so this isn't me talking down at you. I've been there. But to the extent that you can, I think it's better to purchase a smaller, maybe more humble property now than it is to rent something that is maybe more house than you need. For example, the house that I've lived in for the last 6 years probably should have been hit with a bulldozer when we first moved here, and is not big enough to fit myself, my wife, and my 4 kids comfortably. I mean, we just barely make it. But by living in that house for 6 years, we were able to stack up enough money to build a new house that will fit all of us, and it's a brand new house. And that brand new house, when I demolish the old one, serves as an asset and will has greatly increased the assessed value of the property that house sits on. So, owning a piece of property positively affects your net worth. Renting does not. While it may affect your credit score, which determines how fancy the hamster wheel you're allowed to run on is, it doesn't positively affect your net worth. Repeating, at the moment, it actually makes more financial sense to rent instead of buy in the United States, and this has only been the case a few times in history. In the bigger picture, the population is, at least temporarily, becoming less independent. Almost as if that was the goal. Perhaps, as some people in the World Economic Forum believe, everything will be a rental or a subscription. One World Economic Forum social media video in 2016 stated, among other predictions for 2030, that, quote, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. What you want, you'll rent, and it'll be delivered by drone, end quote. Now, for drones, I like number 4 heavy shot 3-inch magnums. Myself personally, where I live, if you see a drone, it's absolutely considered a threat. You know, these 15-minute cities that they're trying to build, maybe if you're into that. 15-minute cities to me just seem like really fancy penitentiaries. It's just a nice hamster wheel. But you do you, boo. However the spirit convicts you, go with it. There is a stream flowing through my side yard that isn't normally there. It is raining heavily outside. Water, water everywhere. You know, when we were searching for a property to relocate to from North Texas to eastern Oklahoma, one of the prerequisites for us was water. We wanted mature trees, change in elevation, and water. And boy did we get water. We have water, plenty of it. I have 6 330-gallon IBC totes on the back side of this building that I'm in right here, and they're all the way full. That's 2,000 gallons of water right there. And they stay replenished because when it rains here, it doesn't always rain here, but when it does, it rains here. So it's either like drought or the sky is falling. And that's okay. I'll take it. The following predictions from the World Economic Forum, quote, the U.S. won't be the world's leading superpower. A handful of countries will dominate. You won't die waiting for an organ donor. We won't transplant organs. We'll print new ones instead. You'll eat much less meat. Joke's on you. An occasional treat, not a staple. For the good of the environment and our health. Yeah. insert skeptical face here. 1 billion people will be displaced by climate change. We'll have to do a better job at welcoming and integrating refugees. Polluters will have to pay to emit carbon dioxide. There'll be a global price on carbon. This will help make fossil fuels history. You could be preparing to go to Mars. Scientists will have worked out how to keep you healthy in space. The start of a journey to find alien life? Western values will have been tested to the breaking point. Checks and balances that underpin our democracies must not be forgotten. End quote. The fact that I might need to provide a clarifying statement to the World Economic Forum seems a little bit ironic to me. But, no. We could go line by line here and tell them to screw off, but let's see. The U.S. won't be the world's leading superpower. Well, we've got BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Saudi Arabia, et al. And boy, they are trying at that. And then you add in the fate of empires, Sir John Glubb, 250 years-ish is what an empire typically lasts. And in 2024, that puts us 248 years away from 1776, if you want to start the countdown of the American Empire at 1776. So we're near the end of the age of an empire in the United States of America, which is its own series of videos outside the scope of this. But you could cite the Roman Empire, which lasted 750-ish years, but had 3 distinct periods during that time. And so is it possible that the United States enters into a new period of United States? Yeah, it's very possible. It's part of why I think there's so much ramp up to this election in November of 2024. Because we're right on the cusp of the end of the American Empire, and what happens next is incredibly important to the people who live inside the borders of that American Empire. Those borders, which of course are being systematically eroded to facilitate the influx of people who are not us here and who do not share our values. A handful of countries will dominate. Possibly. China's economy sucks. Russia's not doing so hot. You know, one of the ways that Russia makes so much, or one of the ways Russia supports its economy is the production of war material, defense, and tanks and planes and bombs and guns. And since the war in Ukraine has started, a lot of people who were buying Russian equipment are no longer buying Russian equipment because they've seen how well it did or didn't work in Ukraine. China, not exactly an economic powerhouse. You won't die waiting for an organ donor. We won't transplant organs. We'll print new ones instead. Maybe. I don't really want a 3D meat printed organ inside of me for spiritual reasons. And also we had this little trust the science thing that happened a few years ago, and as it turns out the science wasn't worth trusting, so I'm a little bit skeptical about that. Now I can also tell you on the flip side with Caleb House, Caleb with a K, calebhouse.org, I received a phone call less than 48 hours ago from somebody somewhere who's doing a thing with people that I cannot talk about. But basically, there's a chop shop that needs to be cut down, needs to be shut down. What do I mean by chop shop? I mean trafficked juveniles who are basically tweens to teens that are being abducted specifically for organ harvesting. We're working on making sure that the baddest shit possible happens to those bad people. So I'm not exactly a fan of chop shops, but I'm also not a fan of 3D printed meat organs. Okay? You'll eat much less meat. No. An occasional treat, not a staple. No. No, I have my own cows. I have my own sheep. I have my own chickens, my own turkeys, and I realize the World Economic Forum doesn't like that, and the global elites don't like that, and I don't care. See my earlier comment about I built my own hamster wheel. I like it. Well, what happens when the FDA says you have to register them? I live in Oklahoma, in eastern Oklahoma, which is technically a federal reservation, and the local law enforcement doesn't know who has jurisdiction, let alone some federal 3-letter agency. You have to register your cows. You're trespassing. And I hope those are level 4 plates. Yeah, we'll leave it at that. We're not playing those games. I'll eat whatever meat I want to, and in fact, 3 times a year I'm commanded to eat it because I read the entire Bible and do what it says to the best of my ability. 1 billion people will be displaced by climate change. I don't know about that. Now, these are all by 2030 predictions. It seems more like 1 billion people may be disrupted, may be displaced because of wars and rumors of wars that are facilitated by the global elites. These little regional conflicts that keep being facilitated by the big they. And then, of course, you have people who are paid to move, to come into this country, bust in, flown in by our own government. One of the best takes on climate change I've ever heard was from Dan Pena, the $1 trillion man. He said if climate change was real, and if the polar ice caps were melting, then banks would stop lending money to develop properties along the waterline. If it was truly going to be underwater, if the coastline was going to be underwater within the next 10 to 15 years, why are they funding the purchasing and development of all these properties? They're not. They don't actually believe that. Because you wouldn't be able to get funding, you wouldn't be able to get insurance on these properties because the coastlines would be destroyed. I like that take. There will be a global price on carbon. This will help make fossil fuels history. Yeah, they're sure working on that, the global price on carbon. Thank you, Greta Thunberg and Al Gore and everybody else. I don't know about carbon, where is it? Fossil fuels being history. Have you noticed that there's been a resurgence in talks about using clean nuclear energy? Because wind and solar do not work for primary generation, and we don't have the capacitance, the ability to store the power and then disperse it as needed on the electrical grid in order to make wind and solar viable primary generation mechanisms. They're not. They're supplemental generation. Primary generation tends to come from fossil fuels or nuclear. It's steam. You use heat to superheat water to make steam to turn turbines, and those steam turbines turn generators that produce power. How you make the heat, coal or natural gas or diesel fuel or nuclear power or trash burning or whatever it is, how you make the heat doesn't matter. You just got to make heat. And so this big push for renewable energies, A, is a scam. They're not renewable. What's more renewable, man? Dig a hole and pull some coal out of the ground, or having 8-year-old African kids in cobalt mines to make your batteries for your electric vehicle? Yeah. So this dirty green energy revolution, more and more people are waking up to the fact that it's not renewable and it's not green and it's a sham. Plus, not to mention the carbon footprint, when you factor in all of the carbon emissions to stand up a single wind turbine, not just the production of the turbine, which is 240-ish tons of steel, but then all of the concrete, which one of the constituents of concrete is cement, which is lime that has been cooked in a kiln, which is considered to be the #1 producer of carbon emissions on planet Earth, the production of cement. So all the concrete, all the rebar, all the collections cables, the circuitry that connects the turbines together on a circuit that then home run back to the substation, which then have to run on HOTLINE, high tension power transmission from the substation on the project to the market where the power is consumed. When you add all that up, It's about 38 years per wind turbine to break even, and the turbines have a service life of 20 to 25 years, and in actuality what they're finding is it's more like 12 years. So you are 18 years in the hole for every wind turbine you stand up from a carbon emission standpoint. It's BS. Let's see. You could be preparing to go to Mars. Negative. I'm not going to Mars. Scientists will have worked out how to keep you healthy in space. Again, I don't trust the science. Western values will have been tested to the breaking point. I think we are in the midst of that now. The undermining, the erosion of American ideals and values so that we can A, demoralize the populace, so that they can A, demoralize the populace, and B, water down the ethos of the United States of America, which allows more and more people to come in who are not American. Checks and balances that underpin our democracies must not be forgotten. Well, we're not a democracy, we're a republic. We're not supposed to be a democracy. And checks and balances don't seem to exist anymore. The legislative, judicial, and executive branches are all in cahoots, and then the fourth pillar, the fourth branch of government, the media, which is supposed to help keep the other three branches honest, is in cahoots with them. So I'd say that we're full-blown marching, full steam ahead on that. That's the brief. Let's see if, with our terrible service in the team room, we can get the national intel to load. Oh, we did. We got it. Bear Independent bonus intel, 26th of April. Again, intel@bearindependent.com is the email address that you provide this intel to. Okay? Okay, Bear. Ba-da-ba-da. Driving along I-20 in Central Texas, just west of a small town called Trent, a train derailed last night. It was at the end of sunset and raining, so I could not see much. From what was visible, it appeared to be a dozen or so cars piled up, followed by most of the rest of the cars laying on the ground beside the track. Yesterday, I noticed a Chinook, I think you mean a Chinook, CH-47, flying around my area. Wasn't very interesting because occasionally it happens. Today, however, was a different story. I've attached pictures and video from what transpired today. Please note there is a military training center to the south of me and one to the north of me for the bordering counties. My entire county has a population of 9,000. We're used to seeing the occasional training operation, but nowhere near to this extent. My friend who works at the store where my husband took the photos and video came out of the store as 7 Chinooks were flying overhead, and told us this was at least the 5th time today the helicopters had flown over the store. The first group had 5 helicopters, but this last group had 7, and they were a lot lower this time. Also, all the bay doors were open. Granted, the same group could have been circling this area over and over again, but this never happens. It is rare enough that it is the talk of the town right now, and people were coming outside to look at them. Just an interesting set of events I thought I would pass along. Next. About 8 years ago, my church had missions in Haiti. I worked at an ER that had a ton of sealed stuff that was, quote, expiring, and I took it all in to ship to them. After cataloging it all and communicating with the church's contacts in Haiti, they said, quote, "We love your support, but don't bother. Everything you ship will be taken by the nefarious people policing the incoming medical supplies," end quote. A large amount of medical supplies was unable to be shipped to Haiti because of the situation there, and that was 8 years ago. I can only imagine how it is now. We found other places to donate, but this is sad. Yeah. I was contacted within the last 72 by an organization wanting to know if it was possible to airdrop medical supplies into Haiti. To which I said, if you provide the air, I can provide the supplies to drop. Because it'd be like that. If you're just going to ship them into the country, they're never going to make it to its intended point. By the way, the same thing has been happening in Ukraine for the last 2 years. To the point where I personally know people who filled rucksacks full of medical equipment and walked across the border into Ukraine to avoid border checkpoints so that the medical supplies would not be confiscated. Yeah. And these are things we take for granted right now. You know, you could go onto refugemedical.com right now, place an order, and within a reasonable number of days, it'll be at your doorstep. And then there's people like, the world is ending, Bear. Like, here? It's ending here? You got toilet paper from Amazon on Subscribe and Save, and you're going to scream about the fact the world's ending? We're not there yet, bro. I don't ever want to be there. Doesn't mean that we might not end up there, but the world has not ended yet. If this is the book of Revelation, John owes me an explanation. He embellished quite a bit. Okay, we're not there yet. So we take for granted the fact that we can click buy now and things will still show up at our doorstep. We're not there yet. Aloha, and to whom it may concern. Yesterday, Thursday, 18 April, the emergency systems, 911 and call lines were down on Oahu, Kauai, and Hawaii Island, the Big Island, for approximately 1 hour. The news said several mainland states were also down at the same time. The cause is still being investigated, is all they would say. Now, allegedly, this was due to somebody swiping a fiber optic cable with a bucket of an excavator. And I can tell you for a fact that that does happen far more often than most people think, and that the fiber optic network of communications cables is far more fragile and has very little redundancy than most people think. But I don't think it was a fiber optic cable that got swiped that took 4 disaggregated states in the mainland offline with their 911 call centers and Hawaii at the same time. That sounds to me much more like it was a cyber attack. And that is the national intel for today. If you have intel that you would like to provide to the Bear Nation, by all means, please do so. Intel@bearindependent.com. And let's see. Show is brought to you by refugemedical.com. That's this little company right here. This is the OpFac. This is designed to be belt mounted, or you can mount it on your plate carrier, or a chest rig, or a headrest, or whatever. You got your tourniquet on the outside, got your Sharpie on the outside, got a couple of chem lights on the outside. And then on the inside, this is just a sleeve that mounts to your kit on the inside. You find your little red handle here, and you pull. And then you got the inner pouch out of the outer pouch. And in the inner pouch, I've got my shears, I've got a decompression needle. Down here in this bottom pocket, I've got a nasal pharyngeal airway and 2 sets of chest seals, so that's a total of 4 chest seals. I've got wound packing gauze, I've got 2 pairs of gloves, I got a flat emergency trauma dressing, and I've got combat gauze, real combat gauze, right there. Hemostatic gauze for wound packing. All in a compact little package that, let's be honest, is super ultra tactical. We've also got the Bear Fac and the Bear Min and the Adventure Kit and the SOB and a bunch of other stuff. Bleeding prevention kits, all that stuff is in stock. Wound care buckets, birthing and postpartum buckets, all that stuff is in stock and shipping fast at refugemedical.com. Right now, if you spend $199 or more, you are entered in to win a massive giveaway that ends at the end of this month, and that massive giveaway includes Gen 3 dual tube white phosphor LLUL21 night observation devices, NODs, from Nightfall Optics, Hardhead Veterans bump helmet, a mount, one of these, a Refuge Medical OpFac, an Alien Gear tack strap, and Arrowhead concealment custom wardrobe. So a bunch of concealed carry clothing as well. It's awesome. It's a great giveaway. So check that out at refugemedical.com. Store closes at sundown this evening, reopens sundown Saturday. So get in before sundown today if you can. Use your promo code BearNation for free shipping on everything in the store. Tracking? Tracking, Bear. Awesome. BearIndependent.com. There's links to everything that I'm discussing here, as well as there's links in the description to everything that I'm discussing here. So check that out. And if you want some swag, Bear t-shirts, stickers, patches, hoodies, coffee cups, whatever, All that stuff is at bearindependent.com. grindstoneministries.com. If you need a copy of the scriptures, you can buy one at our cost from Grindstone Ministries, or you can contact us and I will send you one for free if you cannot afford it. On Patreon this morning, we discussed perimeter defense and some means and methods, some TTPs that you could use if you find yourself, say, out in a rural area like this, and you have a wide swath of land that you need to make sure you can keep eyes on and keep the bad guys out of. Based upon my own personal experience living in the country, that video's up on Patreon. It's $10 per month to join Patreon. It is the best $10 you can spend on the internet. It is a preparedness consultancy, not an I love me, you should love me too. You ask me the questions, I give you the answers in long-form video content, and you have access to the more than 5,000 posts that are there in the backlog. So you can join Patreon for 10 bucks, hit the search bar there with any topic you can think of, and I guarantee you we have videos on it. And if for some reason we don't, you hit the give me your questions post and you put a comment on that, and then I will make a video about it and give you credit for the question in the video. It's a preparedness consultancy, 10 bucks a month. That's the best 10 bucks you can spend on the internet. Lastly, but certainly not least, Caleb House, Caleb with a K, calebhouse.org. If you think it's an abomination that right now pedophilic pieces of shit are serially raping children and you'd like to actually do something about it, not make an Instagram post or make a video, a movie from Hollywood about raped kids bad, but actually make sure that bad shit happens to bad people, Caleb House, Caleb with a K.org. Because we do that. Yeah, rescue and restoration of juvenile human trafficking survivors and conviction of pedophiles. That's what we do at Caleb House. And so if the Spirit convicts you and you'd like to participate, you can find us there. Again, link is in the description. I appreciate y'all very much. I hope you have a blessed day, and I will see you when I see you. Shalom.